Of course, we do begin with our big story here, election 2023, and one of the biggest political contests playing out today. Republicans in Virginia could win full control of the state government for the first time since 2013 if they can flip 2 seats. Now, this would allow the governor to move forward with at least some of his agenda items, including a ban on abortions after 15 weeks. So joining me now from Capitol Hill is Virginia Congressman Ben Cline, and thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time, Congressman, and let's jump right into it, right? This could be a hugely consequential day for you. I know the polls are open for what, another 90 minutes there, but there's been some redistricting there in Virginia. Either way, though, would you agree this sort of comes down to those suburban voters? What is your message to them?
Absolutely. It all comes down to who turns out. So we want those people who want Virginia to lead the nation in job creation and quality of life to turn out to vote, because ultimately Virginia has been a great place to live, work, and raise a family. We've lost a step, but we can get it back with Governor Glenn Youngkin and a Republican House and Senate if voters turn out to vote today.
Now, momentum does seem to be with the Republican Party there in Virginia. I mean, 10 years ago, it was really a pretty blue state. So what part of your party's message is not only resonating with voters there in Virginia, but what message does that send to the nation?
Well, we're watching the governor's agenda. It's an exciting agenda for jobs and for the economy, and we're comparing that to what the president has done or what he hasn't done in regards to stimulating the economy. We see unemployment rising, we see inflation rising, and this president has done very little to address that. So voters are comparing, and they're choosing Glenn Youngkin and Republicans to lead the way forward in Virginia.
Certainly, we know the cost of living is top of mind for many Americans, but also, you know, over the past year, we've seen a lot of these abortion ballot measures defeated. And your party is proposing a 15-week ban there in Virginia, which is more moderate than some of the other surrounding states. But what would you say to those who are worried that that 15-week ban could just be a jumping off point for even more restrictive legislation down the line?
Well, what we're seeing is that after Roe v. Wade was overturned, Virginians are looking for a balance. 15 weeks is really a threshold where the baby begins to feel pain. Most Virginians feel like that is a reasonable line where Glenn Youngkin has proposed that. Most legislators would like to adopt that, and so voters are embracing that. But it's more than just abortion. It's also about quality of life. It's also about the economy, bringing down inflation and costs for consumers. Glenn Youngkin's got a plan, and that's what voters are going to the polls for.
Well, so Governor Youngkin was talking with George Stephanopoulos on Sunday, and he politely dodged the question that if he could still enter this presidential race, would he? So my question to you is, would you support him if he sought that GOP nomination now or in 2028?
Well, Glenn Youngkin has said all along he wants to focus on Virginia. He wants to focus on continuing to make Virginia the place that leads the nation. We have one of the few AAA bond ratings. We're governed responsibly, and we can be governed in a way that continues to bring jobs, manufacturing, improve the economy if Glenn Youngkin can implement his agenda with a Republican legislature.
And so as you have this opportunity here now to take over the legislature there in Virginia, I'm wondering, as we see this abortion issue sort of tripping up Republicans in some states, is it perhaps time to either rethink the messaging or rethink the stance there to win more voters?
Well, Virginia is a state that embraces life and all of the wonderful parts of Virginia where you can enjoy life to the fullest. And so we want to be that pro-life state, that pro-quality of life state. Glenn Youngkin's got that agenda. And so embracing a reasonable statute like a 15-week ban is something that most Virginians would support, and most legislators would ultimately support if Glenn Youngkin succeeds in getting his Republican majorities in the House and Senate. It's not a total ban. It's something that across the nation is a reasonable middle ground for voters, and that's what we hope voters choose when they vote Republican today.
All right, Congressman Cline, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it, and we'll, of course, be watching those exit polls throughout the evening. I want now to bring our big story to our panel. Joining us today is our ABC News contributor and former Republican Congressman from New York, John Katko, Democratic strategist and president of Next Gen America, Christina Ramirez, and ABC News contributor and op-ed columnist at the Los Angeles Times, LZ Granderson, and also ABC's Alex Perche there in Columbus, Ohio, tracking that high-stakes abortion ballot measure there in Ohio. So, John, let me just start with you for some reaction here from the congressman. You know, essentially he keeps saying that where they stand on abortion, he considers it moderate, they consider it responsible. But do you think that that could, down the line, trip up some Republicans?
Well, quite frankly, I think down the line it could help some Republicans because a lot of Republicans have taken a very extreme, if you will, view of no exceptions for abortion whatsoever, you know? So this is viewed as somewhat of a middle-of-the-road approach. And if it works in Virginia, it might be instructive for Republicans across the country. If you notice, Nikki Haley has come out and is kind of parroting a very similar line, and she was viewed widely as winning those debates. So it's something that's going to be watched closely, like a lot of things in Virginia are tonight. It's a very important race and a very important state tonight to watch.
LZ, I'll bring it to you so we can take a look at another race here. LZ, let's talk about Kentucky. The Democratic governor there, Andy Beshear, is facing off here against a Republican attorney general who has really come under fire for his handling of the Breonna Taylor death investigation. What are you watching there?
Well, I'm watching to see what is going to matter most to voters. What happened during 2020 with Breonna Taylor, or the conversation that's happening now in terms of reproductive rights and same-sex marriage and all the other sort of touchstone issues that conservatives are gravitating towards right now. Listen, I don't need to remind anyone here what this country went through in the year 2020. The question is how much of a hangover is going to still be there, and whether or not black voters, in particular in Kentucky, are going to get past their frustration with Joe Biden and come out and support Andy Beshear. You know, it's really going to boil down to whether or not black voters in Kentucky are still angry about how the Breonna Taylor murder happened.
All right, we'll, of course, be watching that. Alex, let's check in there with you in Ohio. We actually have these preliminary exit poll results that are just now coming in here, Alex, and at least right off the bat, they're showing very broad support for abortion rights there in Ohio.
Broad support for abortion rights in Ohio, and Kana, two other things that stood out to me. We're seeing that turnout amongst Republicans is down about 6 percentage points compared with the 2022 midterms, and then also turnout for women is +5 compared to 2022. It's about on par with 2020, and I got to tell you, I was talking with a representative from the ACLU right before our panel, and those stats made her beam, and partly because, you know, they've had these door-knocking canvass efforts in cities like Cincinnati, in Columbus, which is blue, in Northeast Ohio, the Cleveland area, and that hand-to-hand, that face-to-face trying to drum up the vote. They're saying that these numbers show the fruits of that labor.
They certainly do. And going into this election, those numbers were really pretty high in terms of support for abortion rights, 58% there. So, Christina, do you want to weigh in on that as we're starting to see these initial polls coming in out of Ohio?
Yeah, I mean, we know that abortion rights is a massive motivator for women in particular and young women. And we're seeing them turn out across the country. There would have been a red wave that happened in 2022 had it not been for taking women's rights back 50 years. And I'll just mention, and going back to Virginia, that at Virginia Tech, we're seeing turnout levels at this surpass what we did for 2022, a midterm and an off-year election. So we're continuing to see especially young women very angry about the attack and assaults they see on abortion.
And John, do you want to weigh in on that? Because, you know, we know Trump won Ohio essentially, but these Trump 2020 voters are, according to this, in short supply right now.
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, that's why this Virginia issue is important. If they're not saying no abortion, period, they're trying to find a middle ground. And for some people, there's not a middle ground, and I understand that. On the left and the right, there's not a middle ground on this. But trying to find some sort of compromise, some people will view it as such, and some people won't. But that's why it's going to be very instructive to see what happens in Virginia tonight and in Ohio.
Certainly, we're watching both very close. John, Christine, LZ, and Alex, thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.